Guess we should. Wow, I guess it does an automatic intro now.
Fancy. Well, we're live.
That was fancy. Let's give people a chance to jump on here. We are live on LinkedIn because we had a LinkedIn live event, which hopefully this is all working out. Looks like we're live, so that's good. And then we're also actually live, believe it or not, on YouTube and Twitter. So hopefully there's like so many people that want to come in and talk. But Mariana, thanks for setting all this up. You did a lot of hard work to invite everybody and get them out to this.
Thanks, Michael. You too. Exciting to be here. Have to remember not to
nothing.
swear, watch my language, because I'm apparently live on a bunch of things.
If nobody's on, then it's probably fine. But
I'll just pretend no one's on.
you know what I'm curious about is if it looks like it's I'm seeing because it's on the ops page. I'm gonna do this. Let me share this. There, I muted us, and then I'm gonna make sure. How do you share it? Well, look, I'm gonna do a thumbs up. Do we see people on here yet? See, it doesn't even show me on there, and I'm on there. So if you're joining us today, this is Generative Conversational Outreach for Recruiters. You can leave comments, and we should be able to see them. And if you want to share it with others, you're more than welcome to do that. We appreciate any additional publicity for this. Our goal today is basically to give you an overview of what we're seeing in the recruiting space, because it's kind of a crazy time for recruiters.
It's a tough time.
Yeah, there's a lot of changes that are affecting a lot of people, and definitely in that space. And what we've built in ops, I think, has been helping people kind of get in front of more people. It's probably the best way to describe it. So we probably have too much material from what we were going through before. We're probably gonna over deliver here, right?
Those watching, make sure you have a coffee with you.
Hopefully we're not boring you. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of give you an idea of what generative conversational outreach is and what we're seeing in the recruiting space. We'll tell you a little bit about the ops platform and really the methodology behind it, because there's kind of like two sides to this. There's the technical stuff that you have to do now to get to the inbox of people that you think look like your customer. And then there's like the creative, almost like, aspect of writing copy and messaging that gets their attention. And it seems simple on the surface, but there's so many pieces. It gets really confusing. So hopefully we're trying to simplify it with our platform. What do you think? I guess I should just share the deck that we put together, right?
That might be a nice idea.
All right, let's
Keep us on track anyway.
Yeah, so we don't go too crazy here. What's weird is it kind of pulls me out if I do this. I wonder, how's that look?
That looks okay to me.
So, okay, it looks like I don't want to put it in presentation mode because it kind of kicks me out of the studio. It's weird. All right, so this is Generative Conversational Outreach for Recruiters. This is obviously for recruiters, so what we're seeing in the market for recruiters is probably what you're seeing, which is lots of candidates are available. So usually there's kind of the two sides of the house, right? Like you've got to find people for jobs, and then you have to, have somewhere to place them. And I think you were working in this space for a while, right?
A little bit, yes.
And were you kind of seeing some of these trends, like where it's like there's a shift in the market for recruiters?
Yes, I think it's very candidate heavy. So there's a lot of outreach to do in terms of how to engage with potential clients that are hiring for certain roles and so forth.
And at the same time, some of the stuff that you and I have both been hearing, and we have a little bit of research to kind of back this up, is that one, I think in the last 2 years, there's been a lot of AI platforms screening candidates. And then at the same time, those departments are like chopping people. So it's like they're moving recruiting in-house while they're also making the staff smaller. And that's also putting, I think, pressure on agencies and recruiters that are independent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting market. So that probably explains why we had so much interest in this, and we're getting, trying to help so many recruiters. So that's kind of like the challenging part. We have some stats that kind of back it up. Like it looks like 87% of companies now, like at least I'm sure it's over a certain size, but they're utilizing AI in the recruitment process. So I'm assuming that's like recruiting people and then also screening them. That's a little crazy. And I think, we used to have a lot of success in our cloud advisory business looking at Indeed, for example, where we would
Yep.
apply to like Salesforce roles, for example.
Hmm.
And then, as for remote or contract work, and man, that sure seems like it's changed.
Yeah, so it used to be the case where you could manually mine some data, so to speak, and you can even use tools to easily get that data. But I think you'll talk in a bit about the email deliverability and a lot of things that are making that a lot more challenging. And especially in this current market, it's just very hard to keep on top of the demand in terms of the volume you need to be sending to get proper leads.
Yeah, that's a good segue, which is like, look, the reality is you need to make more touches every day. They have to be valuable touches at scale almost. So if you're a recruiter and you're trying to find your next client, it's easy to find candidates right now. Candidates are kind of like the inventory, right? The talent. So how do you first of all get enough done in a day so that you're hitting a bunch of potential people that go from not knowing about you to knowing about you.
And finding the right people who are actually hiring for the right roles.
Yeah, all good stuff. All right, so here's kind of an overview of what we'll go through. What's the story? Who's Mariana and Michael, and what's ops? We'll kind of touch quickly on that. Cloud cold outreach, I think, is dead in the sense of, just pitching and hoping that you get mass response, right? I think what we're trying to do is have targeted data, targeted messaging, getting it to the right person at the right time. And then we'll talk about who, making sure that you know who your ideal client profile is and going niching down on that. And then our methodology, which is make friends with people that look like your ideal client. And how do you do that? And then, there's all the technical stuff of getting to the email inbox. And then we all get LinkedIn messages that are terrible.
Yep.
So I think, our message here is, well, it can work if you do the right thing. So understand what that looks like. And then just be different. We want to talk about how you can be different. And then we'll talk about like how we can help people. So this is me. I won't go too crazy into it. I wrote the book Form Your Own Pack and another book called Automate and Grow. Automate and Grow is kind of like my methodology of automating marketing, sales, and support. Irony, we've built a tool now around that. I've led a lot of development projects, so I kind of know a little bit about recruiting just from, I'm adjacent to recruiting. I'm getting projects, right? It's not necessarily placing bodies, but we're finding projects to fulfill roles, and I think even that space has changed dramatically. So we've seen it, and then I've worked a lot in the Salesforce space, and I think the Salesforce space has changed dramatically. And then Mariana, maybe you want to talk a little bit about your background quickly, and then we can talk about ops.
I'm feeling shy.
Oh, you don't have to. But I know you've worked in sales and that you've also worked in recruiting specifically, right?
And more on the marketing side of things, yeah.
The marketing outreach. Yeah. All right. So for me, where I kind of came to this point where we're building the platform is I had some experience with LinkedIn outreach, and there was a service that I actually offered called Linked Funnels, and we would build people's funnels. But it was always challenging, like getting the results they wanted and the expectation of it. So we had to kind of really understand, okay, great, we're mechanically able to do this. How do you get results that make sense, and what's the right attitude about this? And then I worked for a PE-backed company as a CTO, and what was crazy was they were generating a lot of leads every day just through cold email. So it was really kind of like eye-opening that, no, this is a valid channel. I knew about LinkedIn. I think email and LinkedIn are supportive of each other now, and you need both channels because you don't know, am I going to get 5 meetings here and 20 meetings here? Am I going to get 10 and 10? If you're looking for 10 to 20 conversations a month that are meaningful with people who look like your customer, you need both channels. Feel free to jump in on anything. I don't want to like monopolize anything. So
No,
for
not at
me,
all.
I reverse engineered this and kind of learned like, okay, well, one is in order for B2B email to work, you need like multiple assets. You need multiple domains. And you don't want to use your main domain for cold outreach. And there's just a lot of risk. And the risk has only increased in the last year. Like we had like all the bulk sender rules from Google come out, and that affected Outlook, Yahoo, and Google. Even if you're a business domain hosted on like Outlook or Google Workspace, this has affected everybody. So like I think a year ago we were seeing, if I had an email address that was warmed up and had good reputation, I could send like 200 emails a day, like for
So,
outreach.
sorry to interrupt. I know a lot of recruiters are spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, scouring the job ads to see who's hiring, and manually looking in their database to see what kind of candidates they have that could potentially fill those roles.
Yep.
And there's so much data and manual work involved in sending these cold emails. And they're setting targets for sending X number of cold emails a day, and they're spending hours doing this manually. But are those emails even reaching the proper inbox? And are they
Yeah, you
being
can't even get
read?
to that point, right?
And then do you even know if the message is the right message and it's breaking through the noise? Because imagine all of these companies that are posting these job ads are getting tons of recruiters throwing candidates to these positions. So you have to really be able to break through the noise.
Yeah, excellent point, because I think that goes back to, okay, great. I'm manually scouring for data. That's slow. How do I get any volume out of that that's meaningful? And then do I even have the right technical setup to get the message to the person that I think I'm getting to? So the best practice out of all of this, if to summarize it, I would say is, let's say I have a recruiter. Our best practice is we're going to set up 5 what we call branded domains. We're going to set up 10 email addresses for them, and we're going to keep the volume per day very low. But then you get volume by alternating those emails through multiple campaigns, where a campaign has specific data with specific messaging, and you figure out what works. And that way you keep your domain health high. But this is very complex to manage if you don't have the right team or tool. So to your point, like that's how you kind of operationalize it. Good data, multiple assets and domains, and then you can figure out messaging and kind of work through it without blowing your brains out.
Can we talk about the SaaS monster for a minute?
Sure.
Can we mention what the SaaS monster is? I think you describe it the best.
Do I? Okay. Well, so, I think what we keep saying is we keep putting all these software demands on salespeople, and recruiters are in part salespeople. And we're saying, here's a tool to research data, and here's a tool to use LinkedIn, and then here's a tool to automate email campaigns, and here's a tool to, automate LinkedIn campaigns. And then there's like enrichment tools, and then there's CRM, and we're just overloading. 80% of a salesperson's time, and I think this applies to recruiters probably, is spent in non-selling activities. And then we wonder why they're struggling, because they're not getting the number of, reps, if you will, not sales reps, but repetitions out to people. They're not getting volume out enough that's going to be meaningful. So if they're sending like 30 email a day, that's useless. Like it just really isn't very useful. And they really need to be in the 200 to 1,000 a day, and more targeted, right? So it's like, yes, you want good messaging that's personalized and targeted with good data, but to think that you're going to send 30 email a day and that a sales rep or a recruiter is going to be successful it's really, the odds are against you. And then LinkedIn, like if you're doing everything manually on LinkedIn, you're not going to maximize your outreach. And LinkedIn, you always need Sales Navigator because that gives you the good search and it gives you the maximum invites. But Sales Navigator, you're only going to, even with that, get 400 to 800 invites a month.
Yeah.
So you can see the volume on LinkedIn is very low, but the quality is high. And to get any volume, we need to augment it with email. And that's really kind of like the 2 channels we need to work through. And now the SaaS monster means all these tools to make that work. What we're trying to do is make it so you have like one tool that runs them all. It's like Lord of the Rings, right? The one ring to rule them all. So you can have one tool and a team behind it that helps you create a campaign with data and messaging in like 2 minutes. And that's what we want. We don't want you messing around with SaaS.
Sounds like a dream. I wish I had this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, me too. All right, so that's why we really built ops. We're trying to remove that complexity. We're trying to make it so we have solid data, messaging that makes friends with our clients at scale. And then we want LinkedIn outreach that isn't terrible. We want, yes, the automation tool, but we want the methodology behind it. So still, opening up conversations. And that's really the attitude and the messaging that we take. The alternative to bad outreach is this, right? It's like we set up the assets and we find the data and we warm up email addresses and we create messaging that makes friends. And then we protect the reputation of our company in the main domain. And then we scale up volume where we're getting meaningful volume per day. So if you looked a year ago, reps were probably sending 30 emails on average. And you're like, why am I, outreach doesn't work. It's like, well, what does work? That's because you're just not doing enough, right? But you don't want to make it so it's just like blunt force. So this is kind of like, to summarize the solution. And then LinkedIn is you want it on autopilot so you're maximizing the limits of that tool without, doing anything bad. Any thoughts on that?
Doing anything that alienates your ideal client.
Yeah.
Or that breaks the tech down. Because as we know, we can only send some invites out on LinkedIn, so many messages, or we can get capped. So.
Yeah, exactly. And the tool makes sure that we're not going over. So what is the next step to this? Well, it's probably one, just myth busters, like just so people don't get the wrong idea. Like B2B, this means a couple things. When we're sending outreach to someone we don't know, by B2B, it's to another business email address. It's not to a Yahoo or a Gmail or an Outlook.com address or a Hotmail or whatever it is, or a me.com, right? It's sending to a business domain, a person at a business domain. And that is totally legal and there's just parameters that we follow as best practices. It's like you let them opt out, you make sure that your list is clean so there's not a lot of bounces, and the more relevant, i.e. the more targeted that list is and the more relevant the message to them, the more the less issues you're going to have. So that's really important. So it's absolutely legal and something you need to incorporate to build an outreach machine. And I don't think it damages your business reputation if you follow these best practices. We're sending low volume per day from domains that are branded. They look similar to our main domain, but we're not risking our main domain. And then we behave properly. Right? We don't act like, crazy people that no one wants to talk to.
We're not spammy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like, the more transactional you are, or, if you have some irrelevant message, you're making bad assumptions. Like we'll talk about that when we talk about copywriting, but that makes you look terrible, right? And that's a big part of it. It's complicated. It took us a while to figure it out too, but actually about 50% of cold outreach gets opened, by the way. And LinkedIn's way higher, I think. Like well, in a sense, like the way LinkedIn is, it's like a permission based, right? So it's like I'm sending you an invite with a message and you're checking me out. You're going to look at my profile, you're going to look at my message, and if you like me, you'll add me back. And what we're shooting for there is about 20% add you back, and then a high percentage of those actually want to talk to you. So if we go 20-10, that's our goal there. So we get 10, 15 conversations a month through LinkedIn, and then we just have a little bit more scale on the email side. So it can be very effective because if we're getting 40, 50% opens, that means it's the right data with the right technical setup, and if it's the right message, they'll respond.
And a huge point is quality conversation. So audiences that would actually indeed become a customer.
Yeah, exactly. So is it a numbers game? Well, it's a numbers game in the sense that you can't do 10s and 20s, but you don't have to do tens of thousands a day. It's just like, can you do 200 to 500 to 1,000, right? Most people can't handle more than 1 or 2 conversations a day.
Right.
If all your job is to be an outbound person, maybe you want a little more. And the way you scale that up is just, the way we're describing. All right, so really to summarize it, that's our methodology, right? Generative to automate, and we'll show you how we do that. Conversational is just the approach to outreach, which is we want to start conversations with people that look like customers, and they're not going to talk to us if we're jerks. We got to be relevant. All right, so just some examples. Like we booked 100 of our own onboarding calls when we were first launching the product. We needed feedback on it. We used these tactics to get people that were kind of strangers, definitely strangers, to give us feedback on the early versions of Ops, and that really helped shape our roadmap. And we've built out features that people said they wanted. So it was like not doing that in the dark. We've had clients that have had in the HR tech space that have had 60 to 90 CHRO and chief people officer calls. Those are very tough titles. Any C level is very tough, and this work to get to their inbox and get a response and get them involved in the company. And they understood the company's product. They either referred them or bought the product, and that's what you want. We had a fintech aimed at nonprofits, and they've been booking 30 to 60 calls a month with executive directors of nonprofits. Another very, very similar profile personality-wise to CHROs. So this stuff definitely works, and we're seeing recruiters get 1 to 2 conversations a day. And that's kind of what you want. You want, like, can I get 15 to 20 conversations a month with my ideal prospect, or 10 to 20, because those, you get one client, like what's one client worth in that space? I don't know. You would know better than I would.
One client, it depends on the role that they're helping to place, but recruiters, I think, like to make at least 7 to 20% of that annual salary that they've helped place. So it could be a lot of money. It could be like 6 grand to 20 grand for one placement.
So that, if you get 1 to 3 placements a month, that's pretty good for the return on the time and the effort of setting up the system, and then freeing your time, actually, because once the system's set up, it's really minimal lift. It's really, how do we have more and more conversations? That's what you want. Yeah. So yeah, definitely this stuff works. This is Ops, and Ops is really simply, it's a generative platform. So in chat, just like ChatGPT, our Copilot or our AI assistant is called Valet. And you can tell Valet to do a couple specific things right now. You can say, instead of being a button pusher where you're researching, finding data, downloading CSV files, manipulating CSV files, uploading them to another application, then writing copy and sending it out, and then doing the same again for LinkedIn, right now Valet lets you say, create a campaign targeting customers in this ICP. So you put the description of what type of company in the industry, the geography, and the title. And it'll say, I have this much data. And what do you want to name your campaign? And what that does is it takes about what's normally like half an hour to an hour and reduces it to about a minute or 2. And then the new updates that we have, and what we'll do as a team though, is anything that the Valet doesn't do yet, we've been doing for people. So we'll help them come up with the right copy. We have a really good GPT, by the way, that we can share with people if they want. And that helps us write our copy, and it follows our playbook methodology of conversational outreach. But we're actually building that in. So we're coming out with a sequencing feature. We're just trying to train it to do the right thing. We want good copy.
Because we've done a lot of testing and learning ourselves to see what works.
Yeah, and there's frameworks that help us, right? There's playbooks that say this is how you structure an unknown conversation that becomes known, right? Trusted. So the next versions of this will actually include a 3-step campaign. It'll also, we have a partnership where we're launching, not only do we have cold email outreach automation, we have LinkedIn automation. So from Valet, you'll be able to tell it, create a LinkedIn campaign targeting this ICP. And it'll set up the campaign in the tool, find the data, set up the campaign in the tool, move the data, and then sequencing will also be added to that. So that's kind of the vision of where we're going, where you can just tell it in a minute or 2 you've set up a campaign in LinkedIn, a minute or 2 you've set up an email, and then you can just manage the campaigns or just manage the inbound, which is our goal. And anything that it doesn't do, we supplement it with brain power and help.
Yeah. A recruiter shouldn't be having to spend hours and hours trying to be a marketing person for themselves.
Good point.
Yeah.
I think nobody, like any SDR, any founder-led sales team, like anyone that's in the go-to-market phase, like you want to figure out what messaging and data is working, and is this really your ICP? Like, you don't want to spend on the mechanics of this, and you don't want to have to struggle with all these tools. And that's really, this is reducing it now to you have a relationship with the bot. You can, that we want it more and more so Valet you trust it and it does the right thing, and then you can just manage the differences. Like it's like, okay, I want to tweak these things, but that's really the goal. And I see a lot of these AI SDRs out there, by the way, and I think you've seen them too.
Yeah.
What's your experience been with that?
What was that webinar I saw recently where it was like, in 30 minutes, you'll be able to set up your own SDR that's with AI. And I just thought a lot of the expectations were a bit unrealistic.
But then once I think what the results are saying, like 85% of them are failing.
Yeah.
And it's obvious why when you see what we're trying. First of all, we're burdening salespeople and recruiters with all these tools and all these non-selling processes that are chewing up their time, and then we're saying, well, you can't be a robot, so let's replace you with a robot.
Yeah. Recruiters need to be spending all of their time on the phone and building relationships.
Exactly.
So there's no time to be wasted pretending to be a marketer.
Yeah, totally agree. We don't have to go to sales operations. Like we had all these departments to run all this stuff. Like it's kind of crazy. So our goal is just to reduce everything to a generative command. Now behind that, there's we have a data marketplace. So these are kind of curated data sets that we create. So maybe you want to say, oh, this looks cool. I want to acquire this data set and use it in a campaign where it's like, I want to reach out to Inc. 5000 founders, or I want to reach out to companies that are funded by Bessemer, or maybe I want to reach out to CHROs or CPOs. So we have curated data sets, or you just tell Valet, or you can manually search and find data that matches your customer. And then campaigns, it basically will set up your campaign, move the data to the campaign, and then from there right now you would add copy to the campaign, but what we've been doing is doing it for clients. We'll set it all up initially and teach them how to use the tool. And I think by January, you just tell Valet to do it, it'll do it all. That's really the goal. And Valet will be anywhere. Valet will be like, we have a Chrome plugin coming that's going to be pretty cool, where you could be in CRM, you could be in cold outreach for email or LinkedIn, you could be on LinkedIn, and the Chrome plugin will have a Valet pop-up chat there.
So it truly will be your little sidekick.
That's it. We want to make it your Jarvis, really, like an Iron Man, right? You're Iron Man, and Jarvis is your AI. All right, so that's really, I think, the future, and what we've been building is AI automation of LinkedIn and email outreach, and then we can kind of think of other stuff to automate after that. The tools, though, aren't magic, not quite yet, but ours is getting pretty close to being pretty magical. But in the end, we still think humans are really important.
We're not here to replace humans.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake. I think we're jumping over a couple of fences there that don't make sense to me. Until we get there, also, we'll do it basically by helping you set this up. So what we've been doing, and we'll talk about what the opportunity is with our white glove setup, is we understand these are all the components you need to have a successful outreach machine. We'll actually work with a client and our tool to find the data, write the messaging, set up the campaigns, get them in the right segments, get their LinkedIn and email campaigns rolling so they're getting some success, and then teach them to do it themselves if they want, so they could try other things. We know it all starts with data. We know we got to define who our ideal client is. So if you know like the industry, the title, the geography of your customer, those are really helpful starts. We know it's got to be business emails, and we always do secondary data validation. And that gets us a start where we can come back with data that matches the client. And behind the data are people, and we want to remember that. So we want to make friends with them.
Yeah. Not scare them away with spam.
Exactly. We don't want to just like I think you got to think of it as like,
my inbox is holy, and don't try to invade it with crap. Can I say that one?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you got to treat everybody's inbox as holy.
Yeah. Respect it.
Yeah, respect it.
Don't try to infiltrate it.
And I think the key is like, what can you do for the other person? so that they know, like, and trust you. And that's what we've got to get to. Because it's
But
really
you're leading
tough.
with value.
Yes, lead with value, give them some value in advance, ask for their opinion, help them raise their profile. Those are things that are really key, I think. So that's what conversations are about. It's tough to talk to someone, they're talking at you. Invite them to stuff like this, like we invite them to in-person events, we invite them to online events, we give status to the person, like how do we help them, can they be an advisor, do we give them a lifetime deal in exchange for their feedback or introductions, like are there private groups we can give them? These are all kind of ideas that we've seen have worked. Offering help, like give them some stupid offer that it's something they're paying for that you would give them for free, and do it without ask. Like
You're pretty good at podcasting too.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
I want a podcast.
Podcast is really interesting. It's time consuming in the sense that you got to like interview and chop it up, but it makes sense, right? If your podcast is industry specific, it makes a lot of sense. Like if you're a recruiter and you're selling into, I don't know, CHROs, or you're selling into CTOs, or you're selling into some other, sales, like whatever your segment is, niche down, and then talk to people that look like customers, that are people of influence, and give them a form. And it doesn't have to be an hour. I think that's a mistake. I think podcasts can be like 10 minutes.
It's easy to get guests too, and just have really interesting conversations about that industry and space you're working in.
I totally agree. And I think it's not that you're doing it nefariously. I think then it's like, well, this is what I do. Do you have any suggestions for me? Can I get your feedback? Because you've given them a way to give their feedback on changes in the industry or things that they're seeing or issues they're having, or just a way to increase their profile. And just to get feedback on your business and where it's going and struggles you're having, people are more likely to give you that feedback. And that should lead to opportunity. And maybe it doesn't with everybody, but I think enough people will recognize that you're genuine, and that's what we need.
Especially in this world of robots taking over.
Yeah, I know. 'Cause I showed you the other day some of the robot STRs that were soliciting me. I won't name any names because you could. It was crazy.
Yeah. We don't want to get sued.
Yeah, they're making horrible assumptions that I have this problem or I have this need. They're making things where they're saying, "Oh, they're very generalized. I love your leadership for this company, and I want to applaud your." It's like,
or sometimes it's the complete wrong industry.
It's like, is it the right industry? But also, it's like, well, what specific thing are you talking about? Like, I haven't shown any leadership publicly, or I haven't done the thing you've said, and it's just a bad assumption, and we want to avoid those things. So when you're copywriting, we want rapport by just showing it. Hey, look, I took an interest in you. I saw that you do this, or I looked at your website and I saw this, and we can do this in data so that it scales a little bit, or what's going on in their industry, and getting them engaged. Like, you want a call to action in your copywriting. There's a case study from Gong that it talks about call to action. I think we show this. There's 3 kind of types of call to action, and ones that work, ones that are threatening to people's time, and ones that aren't. And that's kind of important to understand when you're writing copy. So if you're going to do stuff yourself, it's a great framework, but it also tells you how we're thinking and how we're trying to coach you to write, or help you write. Do you need shorter or longer emails? Do you want, what's the deal with subject lines? How do you structure subject lines? And then how do you test to know what's working and not? One of the playbooks, this is, there's a typo, geez. There, we fixed it.
I missed that.
Missed it! So Pastor is a really good framework. Are you familiar with this one?
Yep. So it starts with a person with a problem and explaining the challenges they're going through. And you're telling that story of what that person is facing in their day-to-day business challenge. Next, you want to amplify. Can you explain the amplify part?
Yeah, I think it's or agitate. Some people say agitate, where it's well, what if this problem never gets fixed? What's the cost of that? There's different ways to tell that, but that's kind of how you tell your story of transformation.
What does bad look like?
Yeah, what does bad look like? I don't know if you're experiencing this, but I had this, or someone I know had this, right? And if it never gets better, it's just the world's gonna suck.
Yeah. It's just going to
And you
be
want to make it
downward spiral.
Yeah. And then you want to give some relief, right? So that's kind of the S.
Yeah.
It's like,
The
well, how do you
positive
fix it?
story.
Yeah, it's like, how do you fix the problem? This is how I fix the problem, right? In a sense, it's like, this is how I fix the problem, and here's an example.
Like the Star Wars journey.
It is. It's the hero's journey, right? That's a great way to put it.
Star Wars journey.
What's the
hero's journey.
It is. It's the hero's journey, right? It's like, and along the way, that part of the hero's journey, which we don't say in here, is there's a mentor, and we kind of want to be that mentor to help people fix, tell the story and get over the hump. But I think we
want to be the white glove sidekick.
Yeah, both people and AI. And then, when we're writing emails, we always want to have an offer and ask for a response. And that's kind of when we talk about calls to action. And the offer is like, well, this is what I do for other people. Can I do this for you? So this is one playbook that we use when we're writing copy. And this is how you can tell your own story. And I think we're seeing inbound led outbound as kind of a theme where people are posting on LinkedIn their own story. You're like, I have trouble with this.
Sometimes it's a lot, really emotional, especially to see in the middle of the day during my lunch break.
Yeah, people are opening the kimono of their life.
Wow.
I saw someone talk about their dead dad today on LinkedIn. But I think how do you not go cringy? How do you make it so you're telling the story so you seem personable? And
yet it's relevant.
And it's relevant, right?
Yeah.
You're a real person. You had these problems and you overcame it with the solution. And now you're committed to helping other people solve it. That's kind of the story, right? There's what's the Simon Sinek, right? The story of why. It's like, well, this is what I do and this is how I do it. It's special, but my reasoning was this. It's kind of like that story of why. That's really what it is. How are we doing on time, by the way? We're not too bad. All right. So, and then I was mentioning before about calls to action, like how you wrap it and get people to do something. Like when you're writing emails or you're writing LinkedIn outreach, you always want to think of what you're asking someone to do, or what you're offering them something and you want them to do something to get it. The more threatening that ask is for their time or money, like the perception, like they're jumping from A to Z, the less likely you're going to get a response. So what this study by Gong Labs was interesting. It said like, well, there's 3 ways to word it so that you have a call to action. One was specific, which is, the most specific one would be, give me your money.
Give me 20%.
Give me 20%.
And I'll find you a candidate.
Yeah, well,
the right
go,
candidate.
Right? That's a good way to put it. Give me 20%. That's a good way to put it. So if the perception is you just want that 20%, then people are just going to ignore you or get mad. It's like, oh, you're imposing on me.
No, right? They'll try to drop the percent a little bit.
Well, you're probably not even there yet and you're talking money, right? But the similar to money is time. So if you say, can we meet tomorrow? Or can we meet at 1 p.m.? Even the negotiation of booking something can be really an affront.
Off-putting.
Off-putting, totally.
I don't want to marry you yet.
That's what it's like.
I just got your email.
That's what it's like. You're right. Yep, that's exactly what it's like. So then the one that's less threatening is kind of like an open-ended CTA. Is like, hey, do you have time to meet this week? And interest-based is kind of taking it one step further. So how do you say like, hey, is this interesting to you? I've told you about this problem we solve and how we solve it. If I can do this, are you interested in talking? And that's one way to do it. Or, hey, can I send you, the one that's very popular right now is, can I send you a video? And people seem open to that. It also, it's kind of weird because sometimes they'll just want to see a video. It's not that they're really going to care about the video. They just want, I want to see the video. I'm curious. People are curious about videos. But you want that curiosity. That's interest-based call to action. So when you're writing your emails out there or you're writing your LinkedIn outreach, these are kind of good frameworks.
Maybe the videos are the next white papers and case studies.
For sure. Like white papers and case studies feel onerous. They feel like I don't want to read, but I'll watch.
No one has time for that right now.
Nobody has time for that, right?
Just send me a video.
Exactly. So, again, we want, when you're wrapping things up in any of your emails, sell the conversation rather than directly soliciting, like, here's my calendar link, pick something. Or can I send my calendar link is better than here's my calendar link, right? Getting permission. Shift towards engaging their curiosity and interest without requesting their time. Perception of time is a finite resource. It's almost akin to money. Decision makers are reluctant to allocate time to unknown parties, so this is always an issue. This is kind of what the study showed, and we see it in reality when we're sending campaigns.
Especially in recruitment in today's market.
Oh yeah, because who are you selling into? You're selling.
There's just so much value you have to show up front because there's so much out there. There's so much competition.
So much competition. Agreed.
Yeah. It's very candidate heavy.
And candidate heavy, right? It's like, yeah, I know you got bodies. We see the bodies.
Where is the job?
We got AI to deal with that. We got the AI screen. We're only seeing certain people come through. I'm curious to see what the result of that is. Like, does that actually work, or is that AI like sending bad people to them? Maybe that's why hiring's not happening. There's a lot of open job roles, right?
Yeah.
And then there's like a lot of people that are not matched, so it's kind of weird. All right, so I won't beat this one. Here's a good framework. If I can help you do X, are you interested? Social proof, right? I helped this person or company do X. Check out that proof, and then asking them with your call to action. We don't want to get into like weird ROI promises. Like it's similar. It's like, hey, if I can deliver you 20% results, are you interested? It's like, no, nobody. Like when people say, oh, it's all about time or money and give them a percentage, like, it's almost too specific and it doesn't feel honest, right? It feels
we are not into bro marketing. Those days are done.
Although we do have tech bro mode on the chat and it works really well. It just writes shorter copy. Although our Valet right now is writing tech bro mode totally opposite of the GPT, so it wasn't writing good. It was writing true bro copy, which we don't want. So
no.
Yeah, human review.
This is what I meant earlier, but we had to do a lot of testing and learning to get things right and appropriate.
Yeah, so we want just some tips. Longer emails can be more effective, but generally I think shorter is better.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple. Use an appropriate CTA. Longer can work once someone kind of knows you and you're trying to re-engage them. The storytelling can then, you almost have like, even if they're not interested in what you offered, but you had a friendly rapport, put them into a warm sequence.
Funnel. Yeah, sequence.
Kind of, like you want just like to tell other specific, people specific, you specific.
Because if they're not hiring now, they'll be hiring at some point later.
Yeah, and maybe they have some incumbent, and they'll remember you for the way you dealt with them. So we want a catchy subject line, personalized intro, clear picture offer, and a strong call to action. We want low pressure call to action though. So when we say a strong call to action, it's low pressure. It's like it's not imposing on their time or money. And then personalization is increasingly a big theme, and we're trying to come up with ways to do that that's not manual. But you can enrich data with like personalization strings. Sometimes it's really bad. Like I got really bad ones. It's like the one that's actually I'm kind of like on the fence on is like, hey, I noticed you followed this. Yeah. It can be good and bad.
I follow tons of crap on.
Yeah, that's the
social
thing.
media and so forth. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I think it's the way you word it. I think it's like fine if I followed like this event and I say, oh, I noticed you're at that event. But then if you make a bad assumption with it, it screws your outreach, right? So yeah, these are kind of the guidelines we incorporate when we're thinking and writing. And then there's all the technical stuff, right? We never use our primary domain. We always use multiple branded domain assets when we're doing email. We make sure that there's a reputation on those domains that is good. It's got a high rate of reaching the inbox. So we have software that does that. And we keep the volume low per day. So we're not burning out assets. And then
everything can be easily monitored.
Yeah.
From a really easy dashboard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's complexity there, but let's hide it. This is really what's been hurting a lot of email deliverability and caused us to follow these rules. We were kind of already following the rules, and then these just kind of like, okay, we really got to follow the rules, because Yahoo, Google, and Outlook are in a war for the inbox. They're blocking each other. So if you're hosted on Google Workspace and you send to an Outlook, it's all going into like another bin. It's maybe not
like
spam,
the Wild West out there.
It's crazy. So it's to the point now where the tool will identify in this list, these 20 emails are Outlook based, these 20 emails are Google. Only send Google to Google, Outlook to Outlook. So we kind of have allowed a way to manage that, but man, it's a pain in the neck if you have to do that. It's like, and this is kind of the starter point, right? Like we usually set up 5 domains, we set up 10 email addresses, 1 or 2 personas, so people that are real people. Data looks like your customer. We revalidate the data because data is not always perfect, and then low volume per day, and we just scale that through multiple accounts and campaigns. And then on LinkedIn, obviously we focus on the copy and the creative, and then LinkedIn, we just want to make friends with people that look like our customer. So we keep that non-pitchy and we give value in advance. And then again, this is naturally low volume. You can only send 400 to 800 invites a month, and then the only people you get to message after that generally. I never use InMail, by the way. I don't know if you've ever used InMail.
I'm not big on it.
I hate InMail. It feels like spam to me. It just feels like you're just shoving your way into there, that you bought 20 golden tickets this month and I'm one of them.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I don't know you still. And I think that's the power of LinkedIn is I can look at your profile, I can look at your first message, and kind of check you out. Are you real? Is this interesting? Now, LinkedIn generally has terrible search. So we know you need Sales Navigator, which is like, that's how they're monetizing themselves. Like, we'll give you good search and we'll give you more invites. We'll give you some InMail, which you should, in my opinion, I don't love using them. Some people use them effectively. But I think that's how they do it. That'll give you like 100 to 200 invites a week. So our goal is like, can we get 700 or 800 invites a month? Get 20 to 30% adding us back, the more relevant the offer or message. And then how do we get 10 to 20 conversations out of that? How do we get to 10 to 20 conversations on the other side? So between the two of them, you're probably getting 10 to 20 relevant conversations a month. Not totally on autopilot, but pretty much on autopilot. This is Sales Navigator if you've never used it. And a lot of recruiters use Recruiter. And I think
Yeah, I was just going to say, in a different market, that's a very powerful tool. It's quite awesome for finding candidates. So Sales Navigator has a lot of the same benefit for finding potential company. Yeah.
Exactly. It's almost like two sides, right? It's the same thing as your business. You're going to use, I think you can use, I'd have to look at Recruiter again. I know Recruiter's a little bit more money too, right?
Yeah.
So this is like Sales Navigator is like $100 a month. It unlocks search so you can search by your ICP, and we can pull that in and enrich it with email. You can search similar data though on ops. It basically has the same data with emails mixed in, and sometimes Twitter also, so that you can use the data on ops
or X now.
X, yeah.
Don't forget.
So we basically use our data in campaigns typically. So whether that's LinkedIn or email. And then I just want to encourage people to be different. And how do you be different? I think you tell your story, you use a framework that's conversational, make friends is your primary goal. People look like your ideal customer. Ask for feedback, help, gain their trust in a legitimate way, in an honest way, and that'll come through. And give value in advance. And I think if you're a person that leads with value, and I think Gary Vaynerchuk had a really good book, which was Jab, 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 Right Hook, which even that maybe seem a little weird, but it's kind of that same message, right? It's like give value in advance, give something that's ridiculously worth something to them and interesting, whether it's their profile or their persona getting boosted, or something they're paying for that's free and you're just giving it to them. Because ridiculous offers will work.
They definitely break through the noise anyway.
Totally, yeah, we've seen this where it's like, can I just give you like 1 million of these for free in exchange for your feedback? Okay.
Where there was these campaigns where the company paid to access this like kind of like print on demand, but it was a database where you could give gift cards. And they were saying, "Oh, can I buy you a coffee? And we can have a call." Yeah.
It's weird. I get ones that like offer to buy me burgers.
A burger. That's so
I
random.
never said yes. It's like, hey, burgers is like the subject line, and then they'll like, hey, can I send you a meal from DoorDash in exchange for whatever your time is? And I've never said yes to that. I probably should have. It would have been a free meal, I guess, but
Maybe you weren't the ideal client then, and
maybe.
they didn't do a good enough job of finding the right data.
That seemed like, bro, I
It
was the
wasn't
right
targeted
target.
enough.
It was when I had like CTO and finance in my bio, and I would get crazy stuff.
Really?
Yeah, and that's a tough audience to break through to, so I get why. But for me, it just felt like I'm like, I don't even want to I don't want to owe you anything for a burger that I can buy for myself. So it was like that goes back to that Gong study, right? With the offer and the call to action. So, but I think there's a lot of other things you can do. Like, we've written for Founders Pack, for example, articles like without any ask. We started doing interviews with Y Combinator founders, and those are a target audience for us. Like, we want them to use ops, but we just write articles about them, and then say, hey, we wrote this article about you, and it's in our newsletter, and there's 5,000 people in the newsletter, and let us know if you want to include an interview. Stuff like that can be very effective, just to at least open a conversation. And there's no ask.
It's just good for networking.
It's good for networking in a sense.
That's
like,
what LinkedIn's for. People forget that.
I think so. Like, the problem with the term networking too is weird. Like, I think it comes across, it's again bad behavior where networking is very transactional. It's like, well, I want something. It's quid pro quo.
It shouldn't be.
And that, unfortunately, just that term even, right? So it's kind of like, I think that's where the generative part is great for automation, and then conversational outreach is do this the right way. Like, go in with the right attitude and behavior. All right, so all this stuff can be very complicated to set up, as we know. So there's a lot of stuff to juggle between the technical and the creative and the tools, right? We're making obviously Valet so that it'll do the thing, and that's great. And we got some great updates that are coming I'm really excited about. In the meantime, what we've been doing is we've been saying, like, look, you can do this yourself and buy a bunch of software tools. These are kind of the options for you to do this. So, a lot of the burden's been dumped on, that's what you talked about with the SaaS monster, right? It's like you're SDR, recruiter, here's a bunch of software as a service applications. My experience is those add up real quick, and we'll kind of show you some of the numbers that we see.
And who has time to use them? So a lot of people commit to these subscriptions, and they barely use them.
Yeah. And I think if some of it's getting it out of the gate, right? It's like you just want the result of, is this up and running? Is it working? It's easier to maintain once it's set up. And what do you set up? You're not experimenting, right? But I think do it yourself. I feel like that SaaS model, which is subscription based, everyone's trying to cut those software service application bills.
Yeah.
Because it's tough to get leverage out of them. Because there's a knowledge component, there's an expertise component. And that's where almost agencies have come in. So if you're a recruiter and then you have like a pay per performance or a lead generation agency that's come to you, said, hey, I'll run your campaigns for you, you'll know that it's a cheat code often if you get the right person. They know the tools, they know how to create messaging and get your story out and get you calls. And this can be very effective. And then there's white glove setup, which I think is what we're seeing as a trend, is a hybrid, where we know we want to sell a platform, but the reality is that there's a lot of gaps in that, and how do we help you with this? So if we look at these three models, this is kind of what we see the economics of it. One, there's like, these are all three ways to get there. I think the agency way is a great way to get results a lot of times, you hope, because it's generally a lot more expensive. And whether that's commitment. It's a big commitment, right? And if it doesn't work, then you're really like aggravated.
No ROI.
Yeah. So what we've tried to do is come up with a hybrid. And that's what we say, ops white glove setup. So if you're a recruiting agency, you could buy all these tools, and generally this is what you're going to pay. And you can see it adds up real quick, right? You're up to like $400 or $500 a month really fast. If you get an agency that does your lead gen, that can be okay if you have a lot of recruiters and reps and they're doing lead gen for everybody and distributing the leads, right? And usually they're not doing it in a very technical way. They're just sending you emails, and you got to get into CRM and do all this other crazy stuff. But generally what we're seeing is $2,000 to $6,000 a month is the norm. There's usually a $2,000 to $5,000 setup. depending on the profile, there's this real like cottage industry of people that are experts, and you're paying for that expertise. And they are experts, like, because there's like a lot of complicated stuff. They'll write your stuff, they'll build your data, and they'll set it all up and run it, and they'll just send you leads. And some people just want that, and maybe that's worth $6,000 a month or $10,000 a month to people. The flip side is we say, look, we want people on the ops platform for $500. We'll set up your domains. That's 5 domains, 10 email addresses, put them into warm up, get the reputation up. We'll pull your initial 5,000 record data sets. We'll set up your email and your LinkedIn campaigns for you for basically the same price as if you did it yourself. So for an extra $500, we're registering a bunch of domains, setting them up, setting up your writing and campaigns, doing an onboarding, doing some touch base to help you get some success. And so basically it's a really good hybrid that's a lot less risk. So that's really when we say white glove setup we're talking about. It's kind of like a mix, and we're taking all these tools, compressing them almost into one, and teaching you then how to use AI to keep it going, keep it growing. And that's really what the opportunity is. So, and then we've been thinking we're going to do this for anyone that's in the recruiting space. In addition to that, doing all that, we'll run 4 weeks of once a week, like a group session with a different topic, where you can even bring, if you're like, well, I'm getting responses, it's this, what do I do with it? Or I'm getting, negative responses, how do I fix the copy? It's almost like an open forum where you can do that. So you would have once a week for 4 weeks, an hour, where you could jump into the group session and contribute.
Coaching call.
Yeah, like kind of like a coaching call. So that's really the experiment that we're layering on top of a white glove setup. So basically, we're going to do this for 10 recruiters. I don't think we can handle more than that with this, because it'll get chaos. Starting, not March, sorry, this is December 12th. We'll do a one-on-one onboarding. You'll meet once a week, and then you'll even have like a onboarding call. And then basically all your assets will be set up, all your campaigns, and then we'll teach you how to use ops as well in Valet. And that's kind of just a summary. It works out like a lot cheaper because normally we're doing this for like $2,000 a month, like an agency, but in this case, we just want people on the platform using it and getting success, and then we can use you maybe as a case study. Yeah, so that's the opportunity. If you're interested in that, the way you can get involved is, this is a link, and we'll send it out to people. We're looking max 10 people that are recruiters to do this, and you can just book an onboarding with us. We'll talk about who your ideal client is. We'll talk about what your value proposition is and try to shape the beginning of messaging and figure out what data makes sense to pull for you. And if you're good with that, then basically over 4 weeks after December 12th, we get your campaigns up within about a week after warm up. And you probably see LinkedIn a lot sooner. So you start LinkedIn, and then email starts layering in, and then you'll have 4 weeks of group coaching calls where you can come in. We'll have a quick little discussion about a topic, and then we'll take open forum where if you have issues or feedback that you can give. So that's kind of a summary of what we're going to do for people on the white glove setup for recruiters.
And it's perfect timing for Q1 2025.
Very good point, because you want to go into the new year like with this set up and rolling and figuring out the intricacies of it, so that your January, February, March are like a great Q1.
I think that's really important.
All right, so I don't see any comments. I don't know if that means there's like, it's interesting. I guess we have to see.
I guess we have to see if we actually went live.
Well, we definitely went live. We're definitely live. The question is, I think it's broadcast to our group. So we have a recording.
I was on my
of
best
this.
behavior. So.
You were great. So what we'll do is we will make sure that we send this out to people. They can watch it on their own time. We'll make sure that we follow up with everyone that opted in the event. There was about 75 people that opted into this LinkedIn event, and from there we'll it's the two of us, yeah. From there we'll see, like, if you want to talk about how this can be set up for your recruiting agency, just book time with us, and we're happy to take a look at your situation and make sure that we customize something for you.
And for those of you who have been watching who aren't recruiters and work in a very different space, we have a lot of good case studies for other roles and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's
Founders,
like B2B, founder-led,
HR
go-to-market
tech.
space. HR tech's been successful. Consulting's been pretty successful.
Yeah.
Like any of these B2B AI products.
Small SaaS companies.
Small SaaS. Yeah, definitely. Anything that's B2B. We don't want to, we're not really experts on B2C. I think B2B is the way to go. Our platform is built around B2B. So, well, thank you, Mariana, for working so hard and pulling this all together.
You too. Thanks, Michael.
I'm excited to talk to people afterwards and have a wonderful day.
Bye.